Hello there you guys, welcome to one of my videos. Anthony Martial wants to leave Manchester United in January, according to Martial's agent. Martial is out with injury at the moment. Martial doesn't really get in the team. The last game Martial played was Manchester United's 2-0 win against Villarreal. He started on the left-hand side in that game. Martial is no longer good enough to represent the club. He's only endured one good season at Man United, and that was his debut season under Louis van Gaal. Martial's been at Manchester United for around 7 years. He's scored 79 goals in 268 appearances in all competitions. He's got 3 years left on his contract. Manchester United paid an initial fee of 36 million for Martial, but rises up to around £57 million. Quite a few players are going to leave Manchester United next year. Edinson Cavani, he's leaving Manchester United next year. Edinson Cavani wants to move to Barcelona. Barcelona are keen on signing Edinson Cavani, but only for a modest price. Cavani's contract at Man United expires next summer. Revert back to May, Cavani signed a 1-year contract extension. Cavani is out with injury at the moment. He had an injury earlier on this season. Cavani initially lost his place in the team with the club re-signing Ronaldo last summer. Manchester United got Cavani on a free transfer from PSG. You know, this season is Cavani's second full season at Man United. He's got a good pedigree behind him as a player, because when Cavani was at PSG, he won a lot of trophies, and he was also a long-serving player when he was at PSG. Jesse Lingard, I think he's also leaving the football club next year. I'm hearing that Newcastle want him. I think Newcastle are prepared to offer him a contract offer. Revert back to earlier on in the season, he said West Ham want to re-sign Lingard. At the second half of last season, Lingard endured a 4-month loan spell with West Ham and he made an impact. Earlier on in the season, it said Lingard wanted to go abroad. Revert back to earlier on in the season, the BBC said that Lingard's future at Man United was in doubt after talks over a new contract collapsed. Lingard's current contract at Man United expires next summer. If we sell him in January, I reckon we can get around £10 million for him. Lingard doesn't get in our team. He's only made 2 starts this season. He recently started against Young Boys. I thought he was poor against Young Boys. Lingard has been part of the club for a long time. He risen up our academy. You know, he's had his good periods at Man United. He's had his bad periods as well. Juan Mata, I think he's also leaving the club next year. Mata's contract at Man United expires next summer, because revert back to earlier on in the year Juan Mata signed a 1-year contract extension. Mata recently played against Young Boys. It was the first game he played in a long time. Mata's had a good career at Manchester United. He's made over 200 appearances in all competitions and he's scored over 50 goals. He's been a long-serving player at Man United. He's been at Man United for 8 years. Manchester United got Juan Mata from Chelsea back in 2014 for £40 million. Donnie Van Der Beek, he could leave in January. I think the only way Van Der Beek will be persuaded to stay, that's if he gets the opportunities he's been demanding under Ralph Rangnick. Van Der Beek did start against Young Boys recently. He was in an unfamiliar role. He was the holding midfielder and he put a good performance out against Young Boys recently, but there again, Van Der Beek was the culprit for the Young Boys equaliser because he gave the ball straight away. But revert back to when we had Solskjaer, Van Der Beek got nowhere near enough opportunities, and reflecting on that, Van Der Beek was very frustrated. Van Der Beek's only scored 2 goals for the club and he's been a Manchester United player for over a year and a half. Manchester United got Van Der Beek for £40 million with add-ons included. He's got a contract with Man United till 2026 as an option of a further year and he's versatile. He can play in 3 different roles. Matic, I think there's a good chance that Man United will offload him next year. Matic isn't one of our first choice midfielders, but despite that, Matic still seems to get his chances and surprisingly enough, he's been ahead of Van Der Beek in our midfield. Matic is the only predominant centre defensive midfielder Man United have got. I've always had my reservations about Matic because he's always been a static midfielder in his ageing up, but despite that, he has had some good games at United. Matic recently played against Young Boys. He surprisingly started at centre-half against Young Boys. Matic has been at Manchester United for 4.5 years now, is it? Manchester United paid £40 million for Matic from Chelsea back in 2017. Paul Pogba, he could leave the football club next year. If he is to leave, he'll leave next summer. I can't see him leaving in January, midway through the season. Pogba's contract at Man United expires next summer. Revert back to the start of the season, Pogba rejected a new Man United contract offer. Pogba is not available at the moment as he's out with a thigh injury. Pogba's out for the rest of the year with this thigh injury. Pogba got the thigh injury in France training earlier on in the season, but he's been a big miss for Man United because revert back towards the start of the season, Pogba did well. Pogba's got 7 assists so far in the Premier League this season. Revert back towards the end of last season, Pogba put some very good performances out, but at one point last season he was out with a thigh injury for a while and he has sustained some ankle injuries at Man United. Paul Pogba's agent, Mino Raiola, has been working hard now for quite some time to get his client to move away from the club. Pogba's had a long-running transfer saga. He's been relentlessly linked with Real Madrid. His former club Juventus have been in for him. He endured 4 good years at Juventus before he rejoined Man United. PSG have been in for him before. Barcelona have been in for him and Inter Milan have been in for him before. This season is Pogba's 6th season at Man United since he rejoined. And he's won 3 trophies at the club so far. Manchester United paid £89 million for Pogba, so reflecting on that, is our most expensive signing at the moment. I think there's a good chance that our second choice fullbacks will leave next year. That's Alex Telles and Diego Dalot, because they only really seem to play when Bissaka's not available and when Luke Shaw's not available. Alex Telles obviously didn't play any part against Young Boys recently because Luke Shaw made his comeback. And Luke Shaw, to be fair, did quite well against Young Boys. He got forward well, got in some good positions, and he got the assist for the Mason Greenwood goal. Prior to the game against Young Boys, Luke Shaw missed Manchester United's last 4 games because he had a concussion. So obviously Telles started our last 4 games prior to the game against Young Boys, and Telles was very impressive, and I did mention after the 1-0 win against Crystal Palace that Telles is undroppable. I think there's a good chance that Telles will start tomorrow against Norwich. Earlier on this season, Telles had an injury, didn't he? The reason Manchester United brought Telles in was to provide competition for Shaw. You know, Manchester United got Telles for around 15.4 million from Porto, with add-ons included. Diego Dalot, he didn't play any part against Young Boys. Obviously, Wan-Bissaka played against Young Boys. He was poor against Young Boys, was Bissaka. Obviously, his positioning was poor. He was partly to blame for the Young Boys equaliser because he didn't react quick enough to Van Der Beek's pass and he came off injured in the game. So Bissaka is a doubt for the game against Norwich, so I think Dalot could be starting at right back against Norwich. Dalot has started Manchester United's last 2 league games and he has been impressive. Last season, Dalot had a loan spell with AC Milan. Reflecting on that, he gained some experience. Man United got Dalot from Porto for around £19 million. Phil Jones and Eric Bailly, I think they'll be leaving next year. And Dean Henderson has confirmed that he wants a loan move away from Man United. I'm hearing that Ajax want him on loan. Henderson was in goal for the game against Young Boys recently. That was only his 2nd appearance this season. Revert back to last summer, De Gea reclaimed the number 1 spot back. So reflecting on that, Henderson doesn't really get his opportunities now. Revert back to earlier on in the season, Henderson was out with COVID for a while, wasn't he? At one point last season though, Henderson got the number 1 jersey and he did well in a lot of the games he was in goal for last season. You know, before the start of last season, Henderson committed his future to Man United because he did sign a 6-year contract. So reflecting on that, he committed his future to the club. And he's got that experience behind him because he endured 2 successful loans with Sheffield. He's had other loan spells before. So there you go. Now on my last video, I give you some more news on Ralf Rangnick. I said to you, Rangnick's Man United master plan. ESPN have said that Calvin Phillips, Jude Bellingham and Amadou Haidara are key targets for Ralf Rangnick. Ralf Rangnick told Manchester United bosses that their midfield is weak in his interview for the job. Yesterday, RB Leipzig chef Oliver Mintzlaff did admit that Ralf Rangnick loves Amadou Haidara. Rangnick's already said that he wants Amadou Haidara as his first signing as Manchester United manager. Amadou Haidara has a £33 million release clause. Obviously, Rangnick knows the player well because Rangnick used to manage RB Leipzig. Revert back to the other week, the Manchester Evening News said that Rangnick wants a Timo Werner reunion at Man United. Recently, Man United have expressed an interest in Rudiger from Chelsea, and around 4 days ago, John McGinn was also mentioned. Rangnick has been given a £100 million transfer budget for January, so you can get quite a few players out of that. Ralph Rangnick is Manchester United's interim manager until the end of the season. And then after that, it said Rangnick will take a consultancy role for a further 2 years. If Rangnick does well as the interim manager, there's a chance that Rangnick will get the Man United job on a permanent basis. The game against Norwich tomorrow is Ralph Rangnick's first Premier League away game as Man United manager. So far, Rangnick has managed 2 games in all competitions. He's won 1 and he's drawn 1. Before Man United, Ralph Rangnick was the head of sports and development at Lokomotiv Moscow. I can assure that Manchester United will get a permanent manager at the end of the season. Obviously, Erik ten Hag has been mentioned. Edwin van der Sar recently spoke about Manchester United's interest in Erik ten Hag. Edwin van der Sar believes that Erik ten Hag could leave Ajax in the summer. Revert back to earlier on in the season, it said Erik ten Hag is said to be interested in the Man United job in the summer, and Ajax will not stand in his way if he wants to leave at the end of the season. Revert to Edwin van der Sar. Edwin van der Sar expects a Man United role in the future. I'd love to see Edwin van der Sar come back to the club. Edwin van der Sar is a former Man United goalkeeper. Van der Sar endured 6 years as Manchester United's goalkeeper. He was with us from 2005 to 2011. Edwin van der Sar is a CEO at Ajax. He's worked as a CEO at Ajax since 2016. Pochettino, he's been mentioned a lot as well. I still believe Pochettino is the favourite to become Manchester United's next permanent manager. Revert back to earlier on in the season, Pochettino said a few times that he's happy at PSG, and he did mention that he won't let the Man United rumours distract him. Revert back to earlier on in the season, it said PSG rejected Manchester United's approach to appoint Pochettino. There was reports coming out though saying that Pochettino's interested in the Man United job, and the Manchester Evening News came out and said that Man United are confident of appointing Mauricio Pochettino as the next permanent manager, and it said Manchester United agreed to pay the 10 million compensation fee for Pochettino. Revert back to when Man United sacked Mourinho, Manchester United should have got Pochettino then, but the club decided to go with Solskjaer instead. Pochettino's a good manager, even though he's hardly won anything. He has won a French Cup with PSG. He's got a full season left on his PSG contract. Pochettino is proven in the Premier League as well, which is beneficial because before he managed Tottenham and before he managed Southampton. Revert back to the other week, Roberto Mancini was mentioned as well. He said Manchester United consider hiring Roberto Mancini instead of Pochettino, but recently it said Roberto Mancini denied becoming Manchester United's next permanent manager. And Brendan Rodgers, of course, has also been mentioned. He was mentioned earlier on in the season. It said Manchester United made initial contact with Brendan Rodgers, but Brendan Rodgers dismissed links to the Man United job. Manchester United have sacked 4 permanent managers since Ferguson. Man United sacked Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, and over 2 weeks ago, Manchester United sacked Solskjaer following the 4-1 defeat to Watford. So there you go. Manchester United have got very, very good players. And I'm convinced we're going to get the best out of these group of players now under Ralph Rangnick. It was a good team performance against Crystal Palace. Weren't that good though against Young Boys, but there again, Rangnick heavily rotated against Young Boys because the game against Young Boys was a meaningless game because Manchester United are already in to the last 16 of the Champions League. But look who we've got. We've got the best player in the world overall in Cristiano Ronaldo. We've also got Mason Greenwood. That's a talented player. Greenwood scored a very good volley against Young Boys recently. Greenwood came on last week against Crystal Palace and got the assist for the Fred goal. Don't forget Greenwood was out for a while with COVID. Jadon Sancho, he's a good player, and I think Sancho's done well since Solskjaer's been sacked. Sancho didn't play any part against Young Boys recently, but he played against Palace last weekend. He was good in the first half, but weren't that good in the second half. He weren't too bad against Arsenal, and he did very well in the games against Villarreal and Chelsea because he scored in both of them games. Sancho scored 2 goals for the club so far. Revert back to when we had Solskjaer though, weren't getting the best out of Sancho because Solskjaer was persistently playing him out of position, and there was quite a few games Sancho didn't even play in under Solskjaer. We've also got Edison Cavani, that's a good player. Marcus Rashford's a good player overall, but he's endured poor games at Manchester United. Rashford obviously didn't play any part against Young Boys recently. He played against Palace last weekend and I thought he was quite poor. He was poor in the 3-2 win against Arsenal, but he still managed to get an assist in that game. We've got Bruno Fernandez, that's also an exceptional player. Despite him being an exceptional player though, he's endured his poor games this season. There again, Fernandez has endured a lot of games where he's been consistent at Man United. Don't forget Fernandez starts the vast majority of Manchester United's games. Fernandez didn't play against Young Boys recently. He played last weekend against Crystal Palace. He had his chances, just like Ronaldo did, but he couldn't convert them. Fernandez did score in the 3-2 win against Arsenal. It was a lovely goal as well. The build-up to the goal was good. Man United have also got Donnie Van Der Beek. That's a good player as well, but haven't had a great deal of a perception on Van Der Beek because he doesn't really get in the team. Most of his appearances come from the bench. Anthony Elanga, he looks a good asset for the first team squad. He started against Young Boys the other night. He weren't that good. He showed some good pace at times, and I recall him having a good chance in the game that produced a good save from the Young Boys goalkeeper. Anthony Elanga came on last weekend against Crystal Palace. He hasn't really played much in our first team. Amad Diallo, he played against Young Boys recently. He looks a pretty good asset for the first team. Doesn't really get in the first team much. To be honest, I expected Amad Diallo to play more in the first team than he has done. Reflecting on what we paid for him, Man United got Amad Diallo in a deal worth 37 million. Man United paid around 19 million up front. Got him from Atalanta. Fred, He's really impressed me in recent weeks. Fred played very well against Crystal Palace last weekend. He scored the winning goal. It was a stunning goal as well. It wasn't only the goal though why he was good against Palace. His overall performance was good. I thought his movement was good, kept the ball well, his passing was sublime, and he got into very good positions. Fred played well against Arsenal. You know, he got an assist in that game and he won the penalty because he got brought down by Odegaard. And he did well in the 1-1 draw against Chelsea in the second half. If you do remember rightly, he squandered a chance in the game against Chelsea. That came from the mistake from the Chelsea goalkeeper, Mendy. I don't think Fred's a good player overall. I'm just hoping he can continue with these good performances. Man United got Fred for around 50 million from Shakhtar Donetsk a few years ago now. You know, Paul Pogba, he's also a good player as well. Not only a good player, he's an imperative player. You know, you've got Tellez and Delors that are pretty good. Luke Shaw's a good left-back overall. He hasn't really proven though how good he can be this season when he has been fit. And I'm shocked in that aspect because last season Luke Shaw was superb. I'm sure at some point Luke Shaw will regain his form. You know, Harry Maguire, he's a good centre-half when he wants to be, but hasn't really proven how good he can be at Manchester United. Maguire played against Crystal Palace last weekend. He put a good performance out, to be fair, but that was the best performance he put out in a while. He's been poor in a lot of games this season. Revert back to earlier on this season, Maguire had a calf injury and Maguire had ligament damage in his ankle towards the end of last season. I think Varane's also a good centre-half, but Varane is out with a hamstring injury at the moment. Second injury is endured at Man United because revert back to earlier on in the season, Varane had a groin injury and he was out with that groin injury for a few weeks. I think Varane is close to returning. Varane did well in a few of the games at Man United before he got these injuries. Eric Bailly, you know, he's a good centre-half as well. Bailly played against Young Boys recently, put a very good performance out. You know, he made some good blocks and some good clearances. I think it was Bailly's 5th appearance so far this season. Bailly, of course, played in the 1-1 draw with Chelsea. He only played in that game because Maguire was suspended. Bailly is injury prone, which is a concern. Bailly did lose his place in the team a while ago with the club signing Varane last summer. And obviously, for some reason, Lindelof's been preferred to Bailly. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a good right-back defensively, but the attacking side of his game is not so good. Like I mentioned earlier, Bissaka's now got an injury. He had an hand injury not so long ago, didn't he? And David De Gea, you know, he's a very good goalkeeper. I've been very impressed with him this season. He wasn't in goal for the game against Young Boys. Obviously, Henderson was in goal for the game against Young Boys recently. De Gea was in goal for the game against Crystal Palace last weekend. He had very little to do in the game. He was only called into action from long-range efforts, you know. Against Arsenal, De Gea enjoyed a bizarre moment, but he made some good saves in that game to deny Aubameyang and Gabriel. Revert back to the 1-1 draw with Chelsea, you know, De Gea made some good saves in the first half of that game to deny Adoy and Rudiger. He also made some world-class saves in the 2-0 win against Villarreal, so that just shows how good he has been this season. So there you go. Manchester United must have spent over £1 billion since Ferguson retired, and we must have brought a good 40-odd players in now since Ferguson retired. You know, I'm hoping Manchester United can finish in the top 4 this season, because obviously we need qualification for the Champions League for next season as well. Be interested to see how Man United get in the last 16 of the Champions League. I think the draw is on Monday. So anyway guys, that's everything to update you with. Drop your comments, likes below on the channel. If you do, consider subscribe as always, and take care. God bless. See you all again very soon.